Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about something that's really important to us. And that's this transition towards value, where we're trying to understand what is affecting this movement, how we're going to move towards what we view as the ideal outcome. To start with, I want you to all go back in time 10 years. You're now in 2005, and you are thinking about what you have in your pocket or your purse. Now, if you're like me, you have a Motorola Razr. You have a nice little phone that allows you to make calls and send text messages. Now, I want you to compare that to what you have in your pocket today. Think about your technology. Think of the difference between the technology of 2005 and the 2015. This all began really 8 years ago when the iPhone was released. The iPhone changed the way that we interacted with our phones. It created a different opportunity for us to communicate with each other. Now, we often think about the importance of technology as a way that we're able to text, that we're able to work remotely, we're able to do all sorts of things, but fundamentally, the change in smartphones is that we now interact differently as humans. Now, when you're going through the change and you're experiencing that change, you think it takes a really long time. Think back through all the flops and fails of smartphones through the years. But where we are now, we've come to a point where we have solid iPhones and Androids that allow us to change how we live our lives. Healthcare is going through a similar transition where we're moving toward value. Earlier this year, Secretary Burwell gave her historic goal that HHS wants all of Medicare payments to move towards risk eventually, and that by 2018, 50% will go through these models. At Levitt Partners, through our own tracking, we see that now over 26 million lives are being covered by accountable care organizations where providers are bearing risk. More recently, the Medicare SGR repeal was passed, and along with it, there were very strong incentives that were provided for people to move toward risk-bearing and penalties for those that don't. The consensus is growing that we are moving toward risk, where we will be paid for the value that we provide and not for the volume of services. What's important to remember here, though, is that we are moving. We have not moved. As we think about what we want to do going forward, we face a quandary. We say, we know where the market is heading towards, and we know where we're at. We don't know how to get there. We want to know when we're going to make those changes, when we're going to make that transition. The analogy that we like to use is that we're in two canoes. We're in a volume-based canoe that's floating down the river, and there's a value-based canoe that's floating down the river as well. We need to decide when we're going to make that step. Thinking of your cell phone, this was your choice. When were you going to drop your BlackBerry or Razr and move to an iPhone or Android? When you look at it from the perspective of the healthcare system, it makes a lot of sense why people are hesitant to move. For the past 50 years in healthcare, fee-for-service has done really well for most people. When they don't really know exactly what's coming or when it's coming, they're hesitant to act. So despite this growing consensus that we know where we're eventually going to end up, the healthcare system is slow to move. Now, to help this, we can try to identify some of the factors, some of the elements that might be predictive of when this is going to happen, how fast this change is going to occur. Now, I'm a data guy, spent a lot of time with the numbers, and I found that you can model just about anything as long as you understand the drivers and the inputs. In healthcare, there are many drivers and inputs that significantly impact just how fast we're moving toward risk. These come from the macro level. They come from things such as payer and provider consolidation, from the overall economic strength of the market, from state Medicaid programs, from federal legislation and regulation, HIT adoption, even the changing demographics of our country. These and more all play into this overall growth, all of these different factors that are pushing us towards value. Well, Levitt Partners, we decided that we wanted to model these. So we identified the major factors, and we're able to say, this is how fast we're moving toward value. Now, this chart shows the estimated percent of care that's going to be delivered under a value-based payment over about the next decade. Now, when you look at this, you start to wonder, what does it mean? Well, let's go back to the canoe analogy. In the canoe analogy, we're floating down the river, and this is the pace of the current. When you're able to see how fast the current is going, you can make a decision. How long am I going to stay in the volume world, and when am I going to make my transition to value? There are many external factors that could speed this up or slow it down, but the question that people are asking is, when should I act? You may say that you need to act soon. You may say that I can act later. There are other important questions that people are asking. They want to know, when is this movement going to come to my market? How is it going to affect my product line or my specialty? And most importantly, how is it going to affect how I'm paid or what I have to do wherever I am in the healthcare system? These are all valid questions. They are the wrong questions. Let's think about what it really means to transition toward value. There are two parts of this. The first part is the inputs. What's going into the system? Those are the payment models. But when we think about this, the payment models are not what we want. They are not the end objective. The payment models are simply a tool that helps for the transformation of American healthcare. The objective is that we want to provide better care to lead to better health outcomes for the population. So when people are sitting in their boats and floating down the river and trying to guess the pace of change, they want to know, what's really most affecting me? What are the biggest drivers? And like I said, I'm a data guy. I want to find this out. And so I've run lots of models and simulations to find out, what are the most important drivers? What's making this happen? Well, when we've modeled it, it turns out that the most important factor is the individual decisions of organizations within a market. As we're floating down the river in our canoe, we're not just at the mercy of the water. We have a tool. We have a paddle. And with this paddle, we can make two choices. One choice is that we decide we want to fight against the current. We want to go upstream. We want to stay in our volume-based world as long as we can. Organizations can delay the change. They cannot stop it. At the other end, there is an opportunity. The opportunity is to decide that as an organization, you want to go faster than the current. And when you go faster than the current, you have another opportunity. You have a choice of choosing your path forward. Leading organizations recognize that this second component, being able to choose your path forward, is of utmost importance. These organizations have shifted their mindset. It's no longer about trying to respond to external forces that they don't have control over. Instead, their approach is to identify where there are opportunities for them to help build a better healthcare system. As they recognize this, they start to change the questions that they're asking. It's no longer a responsiveness or trying to be reactionary. It's trying to be proactive and dictate, what kind of a healthcare system do I want to be in and I want my family to be in going forward? What we need to do as a healthcare system is recognize that if we want to make a better healthcare system, we need to start making our own path forward. If we are simply responsive to the needs of other organizations or other outside forces, we delegate our own responsibility to create a better future. It is my hope that each of us will recognize that we have the ability to make a better American healthcare system. And I hope that we can work on that together. Thank you.